I knew that I had to capitalize because I knew that there was going to be an outcome in the future, a need for capital, yeah? Is that ever going away? So if you know that you need something in the future, and you know that today, wouldn't it make sense to start planning for that and taking some action so that you can get out in front of the problem? That's exactly what I did. Has anybody in here ever set a goal before? Has anybody in here ever achieved a goal that you set out to achieve? Has anybody ever in here set a goal and not achieved that goal? Would you agree that if you set a goal, there's certain attitudes and behaviors and actions that you need to take on a consistent basis in order to produce the result that you want to produce? Is that true? I'll tell you a quick story about me about how I didn't achieve my goal. Guess when I discovered this process? Actually, first, I got into this business, the life insurance industry, in the year 2011. I had a construction background, so it was a completely different change for me, right? So I spent a lot of years just trying to figure out what I should be doing, where do I want to focus, and I naturally gravitated toward life insurance. A few years into my journey, I discovered Nelson's book in 2013. First couple of years in this business were really tough. It's a tough business to be proficient at. You got a lot to learn. You need to have good coaching and good guidance. But when I got Nelson's book, everything turned around and everything got better, right? Wrong. I wasn't the human being that I needed to be at that time. I didn't have the discipline. I didn't have the coaching. I didn't have the guidance. I didn't have the right system. I had a life insurance license and a book. And I didn't put the effort in. I didn't put the work in that I needed to put in to really truly understand the concept and implement it into my own life. So I owe a great debt of gratitude to my really good friend, Richard Canfield, because he obviously saw something in me that I might not have saw in myself. I started to implement the process. I got really serious in 2016, 2017, and I was on my own. I struggled. I had a few policies. They weren't even structured correctly, which you'll see in a little bit. Now, like I said earlier, now, if anybody's in here like an agricultural expert or something and I get this wrong, please don't beat me up too bad. But we were talking earlier about you have an objective, right? Anybody heard this thing about the bamboo tree? Nothing happens for the bamboo tree above the soil for the first 5 years. Year 1, year 2, something's happening under the soil. You can't actually see the results that you're producing. And that's what it's like anytime you set out an objective. The tough work starts in the beginning, you get consistent, and your payoff is in the back end. That's why people quit. That's why people think there's instant gratification. You go for instant gratification and you pay the price in the back end, yeah? If something gets interrupted in the plan, we don't get to where we want to go. So you got to be consistent. You got to put the work in. In the 6th year, in 6 weeks, the bamboo tree sprouts up out of nowhere. But at any point, if the process gets interrupted, no bamboo tree, yeah? That's what this is all about. Now, I'm going to show you today that luckily, like Jason, I think, pointed out earlier, we don't have to wait 6, 7, 8, 9, 20 years unfortunately, like Nelson did. See, Nelson didn't have all the fancy bells and whistles in his policy system back in the 1980s when he started implementing this process that we do today. We can actually get started and implement the process much quicker than Nelson could. But I'm going to show you today that even early on, when you start a new policy, we can implement the process immediately and start having an impact on your family. So we're going to walk through a journey here. But it's really, really important to make sure you follow the rules. But you have to understand that you have to overcome human conditions. If everybody could get wealthy, healthy, have a great network, and an awesome business, and live a great life, which I think everybody can, but if it was super easy, would everybody be doing it, right? Where are most people right now? At some job they don't like, or they're sleeping in. They're not here doing what you're doing. So you guys are on the right track. You're awesome. So I heard somebody say you're awesome. You're awesome. So understanding Parkinson's law. So expenses rise to equal income. So Nelson says in his book, you got to whoop Parkinson's law. What happens? You get a raise, you get a tax return, something happens. Is it easy to find a place to spend that money? Pretty easy, right? So when you get used to new income, it gets absorbed in the family budget. So the first rule, this is just a snapshot, nothing fancy. So this is back when I really had no idea what I was doing. When I first got into the industry, I put a few policies on my kids just because I thought, wow, I started reading about this whole life thing. And this is amazing. This is really amazing. You got to rethink your thinking. I thought way too small. I put a couple small policies on my kids in 2011 and I had no real plans to use them while I was alive or do anything. I just thought these would be good gifts for my kids. Good idea, right? I wasn't even thinking about my unborn grandkids at that time, what benefit that would have to them. Then later in 2012, again, not having any idea what becoming your own banker was about, I just decided, you know what? These are like $300 a year, tiny, tiny, tiny. Then I put $1,200 a year on each of my kids. So these are 4 policies, two on each of my kids. And then as I started working with Richard, I started reading the book beforehand. I used these policies. These were the first 4 policies, 2016, 2017, when I was all on my own trying to figure it out. I had enough cash built up into them at that point. At least I could do some things with them. Small things, right? Property tax, home and auto insurance. I found ways to use the system and repay them. So I started to practice. In 2018, You ever buy something that you couldn't afford? Anybody here ever do that? Usually it's like a car, or you go on a vacation, you figure out how to pay it later. You get a trip or whatever. On paper, there's no way that I could afford those policies. I knew that I had to capitalize because I knew that there was going to be an outcome in the future, need for capital, yeah? Is that ever going away? So if you know that you need something in the future, and you know that today, wouldn't it make sense to start planning for that and taking some action so that you can get out in front of the problem? That's exactly what I did. So I scraped and scrounged and I redirected money from other places and I put it into my policies in 2018. And then things started to get a little bit better. I started to implement the system more and more. And as my income increased and as I eliminated problems, money leaving me, just like what Sarbo went through, I expanded my system. So we have 11 policies in our family system today. Willie Sutton's law, but wherever your wealth resides, someone will try to steal it. Is privatization important? Do we have to store capital? Do we want to store that capital in a public system or private system? Willie Sutton's law. So we do what we can. Okay, the golden rule. When you borrow money from banks, who sets all the rules? Where's all the money flow? Bank. Do you want to set the rules? Do you want to have control? Has there ever been a time in your life where you were making a payment and you were like, gosh, if I didn't have to make that payment right now, life would be a little bit better. Okay, so we own the contract. Who sets the rules? Okay, great. Who has the gold? Is there any such thing as having arrived in knowledge? Do we all have something more to learn? Even if you're an expert, do you have something to learn? Absolutely. I get on calls with people who are just starting to learn this. Vern, I've read the book. I've consumed all your content. I'm really excited, but I still have a few questions. I say, good, because so do I. I have questions. We're all learning. Nelson was learning until the day he left planet Earth. So don't beat yourself up. Be patient. Use it or lose it. Have you ever forgotten something before? Remember Simon Sinek? What happens if you forget your why? You're going to get off track? That's right. So you need reminders, right? You need a community. You need really good coaches. If you don't remember why you're doing something, if you don't use your banking system, you're going to forget why you're doing it in the first place. If you don't capitalize your system regularly for a long period of time, if you stop capitalizing it to its full capacity, it's possible that you might not be able to capitalize it to its full capacity. You might lose that privilege. Use it or lose it. We got to follow Nelson Nash's golden rules, and we got to overcome the human conditions that he says that we have to overcome. Are these crazy, or have you experienced this kind of stuff in your life? Of course, right? Because as far as I know, we're all human beings in here. Okay, we're going to talk about implementation of the banking process. And again, we already covered this. We're all already banking today, just that we're using someone else's bank. So we all have an income. It's coming from somewhere. It could be coming from the government. Like income's flowing in some way, shape, or form, right? That income flows to, generally speaking, not most of the people in this room, but someone else's bank, yeah? And then it flows out because we have expenses. Whatever those expenses are, you use the income for the expenses, and then that capital, and more importantly, not just the capital, but the opportunity to grow that capital is gone forever. That's exactly right. Not only this generation, but every generation that comes after you, right, Roman? Now, this is the way that my family and I flow the money. The income comes in. Unfortunately, we still have to use the commercial bank for the convenience of debit, but we flow that capital to our policy system in the form of premium and loan repayments, deposits. It's just storing the capital in our own system. And then it flows through the system, and I still use the commercial bank for the convenience of debit. So what I like to coach my clients is have a bank, depends on how you set things up, but this is what I do. I just call it a policy loan account. I don't like to commingle my income with my policy loan money because I want to know which pool I'm using for what. Make sense? What do I do with it? Anybody in here have living expenses? I got a lot of them. I have kids and a wife with pretty hair. I think Sarbo talked about the debt recapture process. So I use my policy system to fund my living expenses. So whose money am I using to pay for my gas and groceries? What's happening to my capital? I have the last piece of third-party debt that my family and I are working on, which I'm really proud of, to get to where we got to with good guidance from my team and learning from all of you, because we learn from each other, right? I have a HELOC, a home equity line of credit that we're currently recapturing, and I'm going to talk more about that. And then there's cash flow opportunities. So opportunities track you down, and two types of work, right? There's people at work and there's money at work. Which one do you want to do? Which one do you want to have? We want to have money at work. So we look for opportunities as well. And the whole time, we just repeat the process. What did my teammates say earlier? This is ridiculously simple. It's pretty boring, but I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's pretty exciting. Nelson Nash's golden rules. You got to think long range. Don't be afraid to capitalize. Don't steal the peas. Don't do business with banks. Because when we do business with banks, we're unknowingly and unwillingly expanding the money supply, and we're all paying for that today, aren't we? Okay, there's a sixth golden rule that was added, and we were privileged enough to have David Stearns share that with us live on one of our webinars. And we're going to talk about this 6th golden rule today as well. Create capacity for windfalls. If the grace of God blessed you tomorrow and you had $300,000 show up, most people would have to store that where? Do we want to store it there? No, we want to have a warehouse to store our capital. We're going to talk about that. So here we go. These people who are far better looking than I, believe it or not, are my family. So this Spartan, I'm telling you, this kid is shredded. He's taller than me already, much like Jason's son. That's my son, Aeneas. He just turned 15. That's my daughter, Eliza, and that's my beautiful wife, Crystal. My son has 3 policies on his life today. My wife has 3 policies on her life. My daughter has 3 policies on her life, and I'm lagging behind with only 2. However, I put about 10 times the premium on my life than I do on them, but that's okay. The reason why we do that is exactly what Nelson taught us. Think long range. I'm already thinking about my unborn grandkids and great-grandkids. Hopefully they show up. But when they do, we already have a process, a system in place to be able to expand and keep the system going, yeah? Don't be afraid to capitalize. As I said earlier, I always say this to my clients, I don't always coach my clients to do exactly what I do because I'm extremely aggressive about capitalizing my system because I know that I have the need for the use of money. I'm not gonna get all into product stuff, but there's always, there's a required premium. There's capital you have to put into your system to keep the engine going, right? Builds cash value, builds death benefit, life is good. And then there's additional capital that we can put in. The intention is to put all that capital in there, but has life ever happened and you didn't maybe have as much capital as you thought you were gonna have and you wanna have some control, right? So this is what I'm required to keep my system rolling. That's my base premium for my entire 11 policy system. And then I have additional capital that can go in. So am I afraid to capitalize? Not at all. Don't steal the peas. Somebody talked about this earlier. Now, I don't have any fancy pictures for you today, I apologize, but you have a supercomputer in your head, so you can visualize my Ford F-150. So I'll tell you a quick story about this. January 1st, 2019, I needed a vehicle, and I'm not a car guy, and also, you only have so many attention units in your brain, right? You can only focus on so many things at once, is that true? So I didn't want to be thinking about cars that were breaking down. My 2 vehicles, little 4-bangers, not good to have in Alberta, by the way. Tiny little cars, 10 and 12 years old respectively, and they were breaking down. So I was just starting to get things really rolling with this process, and I just wanted to focus on my clients and focus on my business and do what I had to do. So I go over to the dealership and I go, let's just see what we can do. Ever buy something you can't afford? Happened to me. So I go into the dealership and I say, look, I got $600 for you, man. What can we do? So we start chatting. I end up buying a brand new 2018 Ford F-150 right at the beginning of 2019. And the idea is they got to get that old stock out of there, right? So they gave me a discount. I'm using the air quotes for Richard. He loves air quotes. So I bought this vehicle, and what I did was I stretched the loan out 8 years, which is normally really bad advice, fair? But what did I want? Did I want a lot of money leaving me or a little bit of money leaving me? Well, I didn't want any money leaving me, but I didn't have enough capital in my system to finance the vehicle. So I thought, I know something that these guys don't know, right? I knew that I was going to continue to build my system and that I would come back and I would pay the vehicle off or recapture. I would turn that liability into an asset eventually. So I paid for the vehicle until August of 2021. So we're about 2.5 years into that 8-year financing. So 5.5 years early, we accessed the policy loan for $34,480. I called up Ford Credit Canada and I said, hey, what do I have to send you guys to pay you out? Like if I stop my automatic payments, can I just pay you guys out? She said, say that again. I don't think a lot of people make those phone calls. So I accessed the money from my system and I was paying $299.37 bi-weekly. That's what was leaving me. Do you think that I have that number dialed in? Do you think I was happy about that leaving all the time? But look at my policy loan. This $787 monthly, guess what that is? That's my repayment of my policy loan. Am I putting more back in my system than I was originally paying for? Yeah. Who's getting all that money, by the way? Who's it being put to work for? Who gets to go back and re-access it? Just checking. Okay. So 48 months is what I decided to pay that loan back. We're still continuing that today. How many of you have been lucky enough to see me on, what's Jason, the YouTubes? So I got some good coaching from our YouTube coach, and he says, Vern, you got to upgrade your equipment. Well, the money had to come from somewhere, so I accessed the policy loan to upgrade my audio and video equipment. $2,500. I'm now paying $229 per month back into my own system, so we can go back and use it again. I'm paying that back over 12 months. Doesn't everybody love paying property taxes? I know if we have people in Ontario here, I think yours are a nightmare, but I don't love paying property taxes in the city of Calgary, but I have to. So I access a policy loan I pay the property taxes of the city of Calgary, and that $314 a month that would have been flowing away from me, like wouldn't that have been flowing away from me anyway? Wouldn't I have had to pay that money anyway? Is that ridiculously simple? Who's getting the money now? You're already doing everything that you need to do to become your own banker. You're just using someone else's bank. So we access policy loan, pay the property taxes over 12 months. Because don't I have to, unfortunately, pay that property tax again next year? Don't I have to restock my shelves so that I can use that money again and keep doing what I got to do, right? Don't steal the peace. Okay, you might not be able to see that in the back. Who saw my background on YouTube? We have a lot of policy loans for Lego. I mean, a lot, okay? We are junkies. It's almost a problem. July of 2022, we went to the mall and bought some Lego. That's a lot of money for Lego. I get that. It's an investment, okay? It's an investment. Here's the thing. You know, I think it was Richard that said you can do what works best for you within your system, yeah? So what I do is mostly my wife. My credit card lives in my wife's wallet. And my assistant Ashley has my number. The women in my life control the money. That's how it works. What we do is I just use my credit card for expenses because I collect the points, and I hate saying that out loud, but it's true. I collect the points, and then I look at my credit card and I look at all the expenses that I need to repay. I didn't actually get a $468 policy loan to buy Lego. I bought Lego and I had policy loans because I use it to fund my lifestyle. Then I just access the money from that policy loan account, pay off my credit card, and then I add that $468 to my own policy loan tracker that some of you in this room might have seen. The policy loan tracker tells me what I have to pay back to my system. Easy, right? So I'm paying back $43 per month, and it's all one balloon payment. You know what I don't like? Automatic debits. That is what's killing Canadians today. Is it's easy. Go get your car, go get your computer. Oh, guess what? We can delay the payments. $199 a month. People look and go, $199 a month? Oh, I just got a raise. I'm earning $250 a month more. I can go buy that computer. That's the problem. Money is leaving you. Expenses rise to match income. So I don't like automatic debits. I talk to my clients about shifting your debit to deposit ratio. Who wants more deposits than debits? I do. So guess how many automatic debits we have in our family today? 0. When I started this process, it was like upwards of 30 and like painful. Money in this account, no money in that account. They pull money out of that account. You get an NSF because you forgot to move the money. Ever experienced that before? Nightmare. You get paid, you feel good for like 5 minutes, and then everybody starts putting their hands in your pockets and pulling all the money out. And you know what Canadians are really good at? They're really good at paying other people. They're not good at paying themselves. So I don't have all these different payments that I have to make. I just add them up and it's one balloon payment. I just send it back to my system. So currently, don't do business with banks. We're in the process. Since implementing this process, we've recaptured well over $100,000 of third-party debt. That's debt that was taken money out, payments, money out of our family's pocket. So we've turned those liabilities into assets, and now that money's flowing back to our private warehouse. You gotta rethink your thinking. So spring of 2020, I was actually uninsurable because of little micro habits, instant gratifications that I practiced consistently over a long period of time. Vern would have been taking up a lot more space on the stage at that time. So I was not insurable. I had to rethink my thinking. I knew that I was hurting my family's wealth. I was hurting my insurability. I couldn't protect my family at the level that I needed to protect them. So that was enough to kick my butt in gear, to change those habits. So at that time, I was thinking instant gratification, and I shifted that to health. I was thinking comfort, and I shifted that to fitness and commitment. This is actually much more comfortable, interestingly enough. Always family was in the center of everything. But I was thinking survival at that time. Not at that time specifically, but leading up to that. It was all survival. Now it's wealth and abundance. And I was thinking hope. Gosh, I hope life gets better. Gosh, I hope things work out. And now it's about intention. It's about setting an intention. And I was focused on being intentional and my legacy, my family's legacy. We're like literally transforming the trajectory of our family name. That's what we're up to. So you got to rethink your thinking. You got to think about your thinking. So create capacity for windfalls. So we already reviewed this. $54,000 per year is the base premium of the policy. And now between the additional premium that we can deposit in our system and the policy loan balance that's living in our banking system, loans are good for banks, right? Because it attracts a stream of payments. So sometimes I talk to clients and they get all a little worried. They go, oh gosh, I don't like loans. You got to think like a banker. Do you think bankers sit back and go, gosh, loans, ugh. How can we issue more? Oh, we don't want to issue loans today. No, we want to issue loans because loans attract a stream of payments. Loans are good, but you got to, don't steal the peace. So between our additional premium and our loan balance, okay, you can bring this in if you want. I'm just throwing this out there. If 300 bucks just showed up, 300,000 bucks showed up tomorrow, we would have a warehouse to store that capital. But in the meantime, we're putting it in bit by bit. Don't be afraid to capitalize. 100% of my income in one way, shape, or another, premium, loan repayments, whatever, 100% of our income flows to the family system, and then we recycle it back out for our use. Don't steal the peace. So I put lump sums of cash in the system because my income comes in and I would normally use that income and live life, right? So that's a lump sum of cash that you spend. But I also, of that income, I would have payments and all that kind of stuff that regular people have. So I put lump sums in my system, but I also have a specific loan tracker that I follow so I can replace specific uses of money that my friend Roman and I call money leaks. Guess what a money leak is? Lego. So I have a loan tracker that makes sure that I account for those specific uses of money. Don't do business with banks. So we're recapturing that debt and we use our system now to finance things that we need. I got a flooring project coming up that I'm not looking forward to. Rethink your thinking. So you gotta shake things up, get into a rhythm, but you gotta maybe try something new. You gotta get coaching. There's a lot of great coaches in this room. Have a team around you, community. So in Nelson's book, page 18, I believe, he talks about creating a tailwind. He's talking about actually flying, but we're talking about creating a tailwind in your financial life. So we're gonna walk through what that actually looks like in our family banking system, okay? Now, remember I said that we could start the process immediately, yeah? Let's take a look. On my 11th policy, I'm focusing on this one specifically because I want to show you what we've been able to do just in a really short period of time. I think we're 10 months into the contract now. I started this policy for $26,000 a year was my annual premium. That's the maximum premium. I have a base premium and a maximum premium. That's the maximum premium that can go into the policy. I love that date, by the way. It just so happened that it's January 1st. I just think that's awesome. January 1st, 2022 is when we started the policy. Now, I'm showing you a snapshot in time on purpose. June 8th, we're about 6 months into the contract. My policy loan availability on that day was $16,899. The very next day, because Vern got one day older, what happened to my access to capital? Now you gotta ask yourself, are you currently storing your capital anywhere other than you bankers out there that happens? Ridiculously simple. How much of your cash do you want storing in a system that does that every day? Oh, get a TFSA, get it. If you're gonna put money in TFSA, why not take it from here and put it in TFSA? Okay. Debt recapture process. So here's what we're doing. July 20th of 2022, I requested the maximum policy loan from that policy. So from June 9th to July 20th, did my loan availability increase? That was the loan that showed up. $17,403. I applied that to my home equity line of credit. When I did that, what happened to the balance of the home equity line of credit? What happened to the interest-only payment that's along with it? Do I still have access to the money on the home equity line of credit if a good opportunity tracked me down? Am I losing any options or am I creating more options? Awesome. Okay, so July 23rd, now remember I said I have a policy loan tracker? My policy loan tracker told me that my payment for July, payments that otherwise would have went to someone else's bank anyway, my payment to go back to my tracker at that time was just shy of $4,200. So I made that payment and it was processed, and on my lovely wife's birthday, July 27, how much could I access out of my system? $4,365. Is that more than $4,200? Okay, good. We're starting to see what a tailwind looks like. So the very next day, cash value went up, or cash value went up, so loan availability went up. Fast forward to August 26th, when you have a bank, or if you do financing at a bank, don't you have to make payments every month? What am I doing? You'll notice that that's a lot bigger than $4,200. Why? Because I used more money, so I had to increase my loan repayments. It's a lot of money, that's a big commitment. So I added new loans to my system. So at this point, after making that payment, I had paid back to my system $11,393 loan repayment. Again, money that would have flowed away from me anyways, right? And my loan availability on that August 30th, because time's going by, I've paid back $11,393 and I can access about $600 more because Vern's aging every day. You ever been paid for aging? It's awesome. And then again, somebody's been saying this stuff's boring. I don't know if we should be promoting that to you guys, but the very next day, the cash just keeps going up. I literally could not stop it if I wanted to. And you know what's really cool about this? We're in the very first year of the contract. So I could completely screw this thing up, and this is literally the worst I could do because it just keeps getting better. That's just how it goes. So now here's something really interesting. this is my favorite thing. September 23rd, you'll notice that that is actually smaller than $7,199 from the previous slide, right? That was my payment in August. Why did I only pay $47.58? Because I didn't have $7,200. Do you think I got any phone calls from annoyed lenders going, hey, where are all those payments? No, I just made up for it in October. I've already made the payments because I have total and absolute control. So I've paid $16,151 to my policy at this point. And on October 4th, because that payment actually took a little bit longer to process, that happens, no big deal. October 4th, I captured the values and I had access to $17,237. And again, Vern gets older, more capital for our family. This is one of our 11 policies. And I think Sarvelo said it, they all grow at different rates depending on how old they are, how much capital you're putting on, and so on. Every single one of our policies in our system are just doing this every day. It just ratchets up every single day. We have access to more and more cash for our family every single day. And days are going by anyway, right? Is there anything you can do to stop those days? So now we have October 14th. Now I promise you, I did send back my entire payments and I made up for it. But the reason why this shows $1,362, remember, I can't remember if it's Jason, we're putting the money back in the system somewhere. I have capacity for windfalls. So I put those other loan repayments in a different policy. But this specific policy, that was what I had to put into the policy to completely wipe out the loan. So now the full loan has been paid back. I borrowed out $17,403. I paid back $17,513, approximately $110 of interest, but I can access $18,842. Did I lose anything? Did I recapture everything and I have access to even more? Okay, cool. Now the tailwind, June, July, August, September, October, 5 months went by and my family has access. The tailwind is actually the payments as well that we're sending to the system that otherwise would have went to somebody else. But on top of that, because time's going by and our capital rises every day, we have access to $1,329 that wouldn't have been there because that would have been opportunity costs that we gave up because we used our own cash. If you had an extra $1,329 just because some time went by, would that help you accelerate your debt recapture process? Well, guess what? I've already requested another loan. And I'm gonna lump that, I've already paid it to my home equity line of credit because my assistant's awesome and she gave them heck yesterday and they deposited the money almost overnight. That does not always happen. Under promise, over deliver, plan a few weeks ahead. The likelihood is it'll come much quicker, but when you need access to cash, plan a few weeks ahead. The cash has already been deposited in my bank account and I already made that payment this morning to my home equity line of credit. So this process, this is my absolute favorite thing because I used to spend a lot of time in my life focusing on things that I could not control. Is that an effective use of time? Are you gonna get anywhere by doing that? Other than stressed and die early? This process is all about what you can do. That's what it's all about. Your behavior is far more important than anything the life insurance company's ever gonna do. Because we've already talked about the life insurance company's been doing this for a very long time. They know what they're doing. So you just need to tap into the system and your behavior is gonna impact this process far more than anybody else. If I take hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars over the course of my life and deposit it as premium and loan repayments that otherwise would have flowed to and through someone else's bank, is that gonna help increase the profitability of that life company that I co-own? And if I help increase the profitability of that life insurance company, are they not contractually obligated to share that profit with me? When the bank puts money to work, are they sharing any of that with me? So there's trillions and trillions of dollars flowing through the commercial banks right now, and it's doing nothing for Canadians. In fact, it's working against them, and they're the ones doing the work for it. Nelson Nash left us a blueprint. Don't do this on your own. Get a coach, and you can implement the process into your own. But it's ridiculously simple. It's all in the book. You just got to do what he said to do, and done deal. So let's get started.